Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Brian Kelly met with the media yesterday. Generally speaking, that would have been a huge signing day, crescendo press conference talking about the entirety of the class, but there wasn't a lot of action yesterday. LSU missed out on Terry Bussey and did add the signature of Dominic McKinley, and that's where Brian Kelly started yesterday, talking about the number one player in the state deciding to stay home.
He happens to be the top player in the state of Louisiana, so we wanted to give him the due respect. Dominic McKinley out of Acadiana High School signed with us this morning, and we're excited about him, a consensus five-star defensive lineman, ranked 13th nationally. I think that's 8 out of the top 12, 12 of the top 15 players in the state of Louisiana that we're able to sign in this class, and certainly adding Dominic to this class really tops it off for us.
And obviously it does. I'm excited about the addition of Dominic McKinley. His tape is very good, and he's been thought of as a five-star prospect by multiple outlets for a lot of his recruitment. But what he did in the All-American games and the practice tape that he put out in those games, the dominance he displayed against some of the best players in his high school class was very, very exciting. And even though there is a movement of basketball and grass and everybody spreading the field and throwing the football a lot, there's still just a ton of value in winning the line of scrimmage. There's a huge premium put on that. And LSU's in great in shape to do that on the offensive side for the next coming years. They're in a little bit of a pickle as far as the defensive line situation on campus right now. I think you were thinking that you may get Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo back. And if you got both of those guys back, you'd be in pretty good shape. Not great, but pretty good shape. Losing those two guys puts you in a really precarious situation. So Brian Kelly talked about loving having some defensive linemen, but they're still recruiting.
Well, I love our young players. I mean, Gabe Relaford, obviously. We talked about McKinley, certainly Demarius. I mean, we've got young, talented players. Ahmad Bro. We're going to be in a really good situation. We've got edge players. And so that, to me, is an area that we're going to have to get more depth in the inside, the interior, in the shade, and the three technique. We're still recruiting, and we'll continue to do that.
Question is, you can only recruit at certain points and sign players at certain points. You're done on the high school level at this point. There will be another transfer portal opening here coming up after spring practice wraps up. But that's, again, after spring practice wraps up. So the question is, are there some offensive linemen that you may be able to move over that can give you some quality reps on defense?
Yeah, I think we've looked at a couple of guys that we're going to probably move. I don't want to announce them right now, but we're certainly going to move a couple of guys over to the defensive side of the ball to create a more competitive situation for us, especially, when we're talking about O-line going against the defensive line. So we want to create that. So I'd like to get these guys a little bit more time moving around, and we get into some of our OTA work later in the month, and then we'll get a chance to see them move, and then we'll be able to know for sure that they can handle the change in position. But yes, you can expect some movement there.
I think and again, I'm not an expert in this area. This is just kind of the way that I feel about this. You want to move somebody from nickel back to safety, just give them a spring, give them some reps, and I think you figure that out. You want to move a linebacker down to an edge rusher, they fill out a little bit and give them a little bit of a different responsibility. That makes a lot of sense. You've got somebody that you've played a little bit at fullback, and you want to line them up over there at tight end, maybe, if they've got some side. Like, that doesn't terrify me at all. You start taking offensive linemen and moving them to play defensive line, it reeks of desperation. They are a little bit desperate. And I'm just curious how much you can realistically expect someone who you recruited as an offensive lineman, who's been working at offensive line, to go give you championship level reps on the defensive line. I'm not suggesting it's impossible. It's not impossible. Marcus Spears was recruited at a tight end. He was pretty good on the defensive end. Okay. You played Michael Clayton at safety some in the bowl game against Texas. Some guys are just really good athletes and can make things happen on the other side of the ball. But it's a desperation move, and it's one that doesn't make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. It will certainly be something that we monitor immediately when we get out there for the fall. What players have literally switched sides of the ball to try to help? It's a short list. You can find an LSU history of guys who have changed sides of the football and really become strong players. But you're hopeful that they can find a way to figure that out. Kelly continued and kind of talked about remaining needs on this roster.
We still have some needs. The defensive tackle position is one that we're still vetting, that we have some needs that we'll continue to look at moving forward, going into the spring. But again, excited about Dominic McKinley and his addition today. And then moving forward, we've got a 7-day window here in the signing period. We could have some other movement here.
Which is interesting. I had not considered any extra movement in terms of players that LSU may be targeting. I have not seen any names. I have not seen any reports. I'm over there hanging out with the guys on the Bengal Tiger with Shea Dixon, Billy Embody, and if Brian Kelly is alluding to that, potentially there is something. If they can find a body that is is capable of playing in the SEC in this little window, that'd be fantastic. I just haven't seen that name. So he continued on and talked about the approach in the transfer portal.
We looked at it from a perspective of fit and need, but fit first. And as I've said to you before, I think it's, for us, we're going to develop and build this program with high school players and then be very strategic with the portal. It's no coincidence that 4 out of the 6 players are from the state of Louisiana and have ties to the state of Louisiana, 2 from Baton Rouge out of U High, 2 from New Orleans and John Ehret and Warren Easton High School, and then 2 that are established players from the SEC.
So that's going to be Brian Kelly's ideal path here. It's something we've talked about. He's going to sign a ton of high school kids every year, and they're going to supplement in the portal. They're not going to play this Lane Kiffin game. And Ole Miss traditionally has not had a lot of success recruiting high 4- and 5-star players. Hugh Freeze had a little bit of a run there where they got a few, but Lane Kiffin has not had that kind of success with those type of players. So if you're looking for really, really high-end players, you may have to get them as 21, 22-year-olds that have got 3 years of college experience under their belt and can play. I think that LSU is in a position where leaning on high schoolers it's just a better way to go about it for LSU. You understand that if you sign 28 high schoolers, 14 of them might transfer out. That's just a risk you're going to run. That's not necessarily happening a ton at Georgia, but it happens a lot of places. It certainly did at A&M. It certainly did for this class with a new coaching staff at Alabama. We've seen it. But you got to continue to bring in as many as you can, and then you figure out what your needs are and try to address them as quickly as you can. That's the way that I see it. And Brian Kelly kind of wrapped up this kind of segment of it, talking about why he feels that way.
We had a huge need last year. There were issues relative to numbers within our program where we had to go into the transfer portal just to field the roster, from a defensive perspective. And, that's not sustainable. What's sustainable is player development, retention, and you do that through building relationships with your players that are here because they want to be at LSU. For me, I think the business plan has been all along to pull our base here in the state of Louisiana, develop the high school player, and then by doing so, you develop a relationship and a trust and an allegiance to the young man that's in your program. That doesn't mean you don't use the transfer portal. I think you've got to be strategic in it, and you've got to be in it when you need it.
Again, I think that's the best way to go about it. I do disagree that it's not sustainable to continue to rely really, really heavily on the transfer portal. While I'm not advocating it, I think you can do it. I think there are enough players in the transfer portal every single year where if you want to go get 20 a year, you can do it. Do I think it's the best way? No. Do I think it's going to be really volatile if you do that? Yes, because you're consistently bringing guys in for 1 year and they're gone, 1 year and they're gone, 1 year and they're gone. So sometimes you're going to hit on those guys like LSU did in the secondary 2 years ago, and some years you're going to whiff on them, and that's what we saw with LSU in the secondary this past year. But you can do it. And I think sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. I just think it's a better idea to try to lean heavily on high school kids which you can do in this state at this program, and that's clearly what Brian Kelly is shooting for. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.